What's going on, everyone? Darkside Phil here, and welcome to another edition of the Hateful Truth video game review series. And today we're going to talk about a very unique game, a game that was extremely anticipated, very highly hyped by many people, including the gaming media, but gamers alike. A game that had potential to either soar or fall flat on its face, depending on the execution. And one of the most unique, grueling, but I think rewarding playthroughs that I've ever done in my entire life due to the uniqueness of this game. And the game that I'm talking about is Dead Island for the Xbox 360. Now, the first thing I want to say is this took a lot of preparation and planning in order for me to pull this playthrough off and be able to give you this very honest review, okay? And I could probably say that 75 to 80% of the people who normally play video games probably don't have the means to pull off what we pulled off to get the full experience out of this game. So allow me to explain. Dead Island is an open world role-playing game slash action hybrid game in the style of, say, a Fallout 3, but very much more action-based. That's based on 4-player cooperative play. Okay, the cast of characters has 4 characters, and each one has their own individual story, although to be completely honest, as the game progresses, really story doesn't have too much to do with it as opposed to the gameplay itself and the role-playing elements of the game, okay? And just to give you a premise of what is going on in this game, 4 people from completely different walks of life. I mean, you've got a quarterback in the NFL, you've got a rapper, you've got a bodyguard slash ex-merc cop, and you've got just a receptionist at a hotel who are on a resort island in Banoi, and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose when a zombie outbreak takes over the entire island. So we're not just talking the resort part of the island, we're talking the actual city on the island, which is more of like a slum. We're talking about the jungles on the island. Everything gets taken over by this zombie invasion. And what is your job? Your job is to survive, to go from locale to locale, place to place, hacking and shooting zombies, blowing them up, surviving that way, and at the same time, helping out people, doing side missions to get experience points, to level up and gain more abilities for your characters, to find better weapons, better loot and drops, more unique weapons, to find modifications for those weapons that give them elemental properties, to give them pretty crazy enhancements. And that's the game in a nutshell. So you're not going to find too much complexity here in regards to the story, in regards to character development. What you will find is some pretty damn good gameplay and probably some of the best co-op gameplay ever put into a video game that I've ever seen, okay? That being said, the reason that I said only about 75 to 80% of the people who play this game won't be able to get the kind of experience that I did is because it is an undertaking to get 4 people that you know to sit down and play this game at the same time. Okay, let's face it, we all have our own lives, our own schedules, and it's not possible for us to sit down and play a game like this together over the internet for extended periods of time. This game, if you just do the story, is probably about 15 to 18 hours long. If you do all the side missions like we tried to do but ended up skipping a couple, it was 23 hours long. But from what we've heard, if you do every side mission in the game, it's about 30 hours of content in this game. So good luck getting your friends to sit down for 30 hours to play this game. Now that being said, there is local co-op with System Link, and it is possible to do co-op like that. So if you can get people at your place, you know what I mean, you can hook up multiple systems, that could happen. But primarily the way you're going to want to probably play this game is over the internet with your friends. And let's first of all talk about what I liked about the game, where I think the game excels. Then we'll talk a little bit about the problems with the game, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I feel about games on launch day having these kind of problems, okay? So, Dead Island. Like I said, very light on story. You're not going to find much in the story department here besides just the necessary narrative to get you from point A to point B and why you're going to point B. The gameplay of the game, if you like hack and slash action, okay, if you like leveling up, that grind where you're gaining experience and leveling up, if you like finding unique weapons, modifying your weapons, All this kind of stuff are the things that you're going to enjoy from this game. This game, a good comparison to this game would be, it's like Borderlands, but it's less gun-based. It's more melee-based for 99% of the game. In fact, you don't even find guns until the second half of the game, which is kind of weird because the person who I had selected, her specialty was guns, and so really she didn't shine until the second half of the game when we finally got guns and she started doing some major damage with these weapons, okay? So if you like that kind of deal, open world. Now, it's not as open world, again, as, say, Fallout. I think Fallout is very unique, Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, in the fact that you can go pretty much anywhere in those games, and as long as you can survive the monsters or whatever's going on in those areas, you can explore whatever you want, whenever you want. This game is more along the lines of Deus Ex, Human Revolution, which I just played a couple weeks ago, where you're in a certain limited area until you can move on to the next part of the story. So you'll be at the resort part of the island for the first third of the game. Then you'll move on to the city for the second third of the game, and then to the jungle for the last third. And you won't be able... You can go back and forth between them, but primarily most of the quests and things are in those areas, and you can't go to the next area. For example, you can't just wander to the city until you've completed all of the missions for the first... or story-based missions for the first third of the game in the resort area, okay? So it is an open world concept, but it's a limited open world concept, which works really well. The loading times for this game aren't very long, which is excellent for an open world game. I did not install this game to my hard drive, by the way, and the loading times were very good. The level of detail and graphics in this game, what I will say is this: there is some pop-in issues, meaning as soon as you arrive at a locale, you're going to notice that the textures aren't there, but once the textures load, the graphics in this game are outstanding. The character model detail, the detail on each and every one of the zombies, the resort, you would think you're on vacation at a resort when you're playing this game. I mean, it's that detailed. There's beach balls, there's drinks, there's pools, there's tiki bars, there's lodges, and in the lodges, the level of detail, you'll see everything that you would expect at like a luxury resort in this game, and it really is that detailed to the point where it's very, very interesting. And you really feel like you're put into the shoes of these four survivors trying to make their way across the island. That's a major plus for me. You know, some of the detriments of games like Fallout is every woman kind of looks the same. Every guy is a generic character model. And, you know, you go to these areas and they look detailed, but then when you take a closer look, oh, it really isn't that detailed. It's an empty room or whatever. This game does an exceptional job of adding realism and variety and detail to the game world, okay? So I have to give these guys props because they didn't use the Unreal Engine and cop out. They used, you know, some graphical engine. I'm not sure what it was. I think it was called like Chrome Engine. It actually says it right here, or the Chrome 5 engine. The graphics are outstanding. Some of the best graphics I've seen on a console. Very good. The gameplay is excellent. The gameplay, again, reminded me of Borderlands. In fact, sometimes the visuals that you see are kind of similar to Borderlands, where you're going to see hit points flying through the air as you pummel on a zombie, or a zombie gets a damage over time done to it by a fire or electricity or something else. And the ability to find better weapons, rarer weapons, the modifications, just the combat itself is kind of similar to Borderlands in many different ways. The ability to, you know, level up your character and get new things. The ability to get unlocking, which you could have done in Deus Ex or you could have done in Fallout, is in this game. So you can lock boxes and find weapons and items inside of those. All these things are present in the game, and it really adds to the experience of, okay, you're not just fighting for the sake of fighting. You'll actually want to fight more zombies to get more experience, to get more abilities for your character, and to get better weapons. It's very addictive. It's that addictive formula that you get. So you enjoy the combat so much that you want to keep doing it. Even though it can seem repetitive at times, you know that there's probably going to be payoff for doing it, whether it's money, experience, finding better weapons, etc. And I think that's really where the game shines. The co-op aspect is outstanding. This is the kind of game. Have you ever wanted to play an open world RPG that you can play with your friends? You can finally do it. And yeah, you could have done it in Borderlands. That is true. But I think that this game, being in a zombie apocalypse, really puts it in a very unique position. You've never been able to simulate survival horror in an RPG game like this before. I think that Resident Evil 5 tried something like this, but because Resident Evil 5 still had that over-the-shoulder third-person camera, limited control, limited abilities. It didn't excel as much as this game does at doing this co-op aspect, okay? And there's just nothing better than running through a zombie apocalypse, hacking and slashing zombies to death with your friends. And if anything, we know that from games like Dead Rising 2, where the game was way better playing it with a friend with 2-player co-op than it was playing the single-player campaign, okay? The voice acting is good. It's not great. You're going to find some people. Phil Lamar does the voice of the rapper in the game, which is kind of funny. And I never even recognized his voice during the whole game. And you're going to see lots of voice actors who are familiar to you once the credits hit, and you'll probably recognize them. So the voice acting is up to par for a game. It's not horrible like the Resident Evil series by any means, that's for sure. And it does seem like it was designed for an English-speaking audience. It's not one of these games where people are trying to speak English and it sounds horrible. You know what I mean? They kind of understood what they were saying. So that's a lot of the positives about the game. Great graphics, fun gameplay, very fun for co-op. Oh, the one other thing that's really cool, the cars. I mean, this game could have been a horrible grind, and the transportation could have really sucked ass if this game didn't have vehicles. But they did the right thing. There are vehicles. Now, there's not an overabundance of vehicles. You have to remember where they're located. You have to be sure to be careful with these vehicles because they will blow up if you drive them like shit. But the vehicles are fun as hell. Just getting all 4 friends into a car and driving down the highway and slamming into zombies left and right and then killing them and getting experience points for it while you're doing it is hilarious fun. I can't tell you how many times we smashed a zombie so hard with the car that we all just fucking burst out laughing because it looked so hilarious. So, the cars, a definite plus. Extremely happy that they put them in the game, okay? And the gameplay, like I said, if you just do the story, you'll still get a complete experience, being that the game is long enough to satisfy anyone who just wants to rush through the story and get the game done. But the fact that there are so many side missions is an absolute bonus. And yeah, of course, you're going to have your tried and true RPG formula for a lot of these side missions, where it's going to be, go find me 5 of this item and bring it back and I'll give you some experience points. But there are a lot of others that are, very interesting. Go find my husband who's lost in the city. And then you find him and he says, well, I can't go unless you find an item in this other location. So you go do that. Or maybe you're protecting a person while they travel from point A to point B. Or maybe you're trying to gather critical supplies like food or gas. So there's a lot of things here that can lead to the variety of the game, and you will feel rewarded doing these side missions because you will either get a unique weapon, you'll get massive amounts of experience, a chunk of money that you can use to buy other items or modify your existing weapons. You feel rewarded. You never feel like you did a side mission and it was a waste of time. So the side missions are also added content, added fun. In my opinion, if you have time, which we did unfortunately, we had to beat this game within 2 days because when we sat down to do this game, it was myself and John Rambo who were basically free up, whenever to do it. And then we had 2 friends who had full-time jobs who actually took days off of work to play this game with us. So that's a hard thing. You know what I mean? I understand. If you're a student, if you have a job, anyone who has responsibilities in life, it's going to be hard to play through a 20 to 30 hour game, 4 players with your friends. We were lucky enough to do it. But if you have time to do it and you can do it over an extended period of time, I recommend doing as many, if not all, of the side missions that you find. And in addition to all the official content, there are a couple cool Easter eggs in this game, which I won't spoil. If you watch the playthrough, you've probably seen them, but some pretty cool stuff that's hidden in the game that's pretty neat, okay? What don't I like about the game? Where did this game fail or fall flat on its face? Well, I would have liked to see some more interesting story. The characters, like I said, the 4 characters never really are fleshed out during the course of the game. You don't really get to know them too much or know too much about them. And they just seem like general stereotypes just to have 4 different characters in the game. Let's face it, they could have been anyone. You could have, at the beginning of the game, they could have just let you create your own characters, and it would have served the same purpose. And, there wouldn't have really been any difference between it. The only thing is, there's the archetypes, like in Borderlands, you can pick the type of character that you want. In this game, you can as well, because there's 4 characters. But outside of the special abilities that are slightly different, there really is no other difference here, okay? So I have to say, the fact that there is no variety in the story of the characters, The fact that the story of the game is just to get you from point A to point B, and really, even the ending is kind of anticlimactic. Reminded me a lot of some of the endings of other similar games like Dead Rising 2. It was okay, the story. I think they could have done a better job there. But then again, if you're going to have a more complicated story, the game might have ended up being a lot longer, and less focus on the gameplay and more focus on the story, and maybe that would have hurt the game. I don't know. The major issues that I have with the game are things that, unfortunately, will probably be fixed by the end of this week. And when I say that, I mean matchmaking issues, graphical crashes, frame rate issues, things that normally, you know, you would think that the game would have had fixed during a beta test period that do happen in this game. Let me put it to you this way. We disconnected several times, me and my friends who were playing over the internet, and sometimes it was an absolute chore to get the matchmaking to work again so that we could connect, okay? Now, outside of that, this game actually has a really hard time working if you're not playing with friends. From what we saw, we actually tried to do some random matchmaking during the times where we couldn't connect to each other. We couldn't even connect to anyone's game. It would show listing. When you try to connect, it would never work. So right now, this is a game you have to play with friends. I recommend you, this is a game meant to be experienced with your friends. For a single player experience, I would say this game's probably going to be way too difficult and way too repetitive and boring. The best parts of this game are when you're in trouble and your friends run over and start beating the fuck out of the same zombie you are to save your ass, and then you all book it over to a car and get out of there. I mean, those are the best parts, the cooperative aspect of the game. So if you're not playing this game cooperative, I can understand this game probably is a grind, probably is not as fun, anywhere near as fun as playing it with friends. This game is a co-op game. A necessary co-op game. If you don't have friends to play this game with, I don't recommend you get this game at all, okay? So, let's talk a little bit about the problems. The matchmaking. Sometimes you'll just drop. You will just drop from the game, and there's nothing you can do about it. It had nothing to do with your console or anything like that. You just drop from the game. And then it could be a pain in the ass trying to re-invite your friends, because we tried a bunch of times and it would say, oh, the game's not available. Now, to the game's credit, the game has enough checkpoints that it auto-saves at the correct time so that you probably won't have too much of an issue. But here's a perfect example. We were in the middle of a mission. Right near the end of the mission, one of our friends dropped. We completed the mission because we were right there. Then when our friend finally was able to rejoin the game, his game didn't recognize that we had beaten the mission, and he, if he ever goes to play this game by himself, will be stuck at that point in the game having to progress on. And that is a major problem and a major flaw with the game. In addition to that, he was never able to get experience points for missions again because it said, oh, you didn't earn the, getting this far in the game. And so for him, it was all about combat for the rest of the game, while for us, we were trying to do side missions because you get experience rewards for doing these side missions. That sucks, and that's really something that needs to be fixed, okay? This game, because the graphics are so good, actually, with 4-player co-op, crashed our consoles several times. My console crashed, John Rambo's console crashed, and Grog's console crashed several times. And it was a major pain in the ass. And again, being that if you could just jump back into the game easily with no problems with this networking and matchmaking, then maybe it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But being that it is hard to reform your game and start over, it's a major problem with the game, and I think that that should have been addressed. They should have known that when you have 4 players attacking shit, that probably the graphics are going to overload your console, and it happened to 3 out of the 4 of us at different points during the game. If your console's not crashing, you may have frame rate issues, and there are several times during this game where we were playing and there was so much going on the screen at once that the graphics, the frame rate went down to a crawl. And at some point, when everyone's attacking the same enemy and the camera gets wobbly because you're using maybe a pickaxe or whatever, and so you're seeing your body swinging with it and everything, the frame rate can go in the toilet, and it's very hard to tell what the hell's going on. Now, the good news is this doesn't happen all the time, and a lot of the time you're not going to have 40 zombies on the screen at once, so it's not that big of a concern. But at the points where it does happen, it is extremely annoying, and it can lead to some cheap deaths, okay? One thing I do want to say is that's okay, because when you die in this game, you can either be revived by your friends, or if you can't be revived because no one has the medkit to do it, you can just revive yourself, but it costs money. And that's where it can really get frustrating, and a couple tougher parts of this game where you keep dying and dying and dying, you end up constantly having no money, so you can't upgrade your weapons, you can't buy the health kits, and it really gets frustrating to a point. But besides the graphical bugs, besides the frame rate issues, and besides the networking issues, this game is a really good game. And it's already been announced that by the end of this week, now this is launch week when I'm making this Hateful Truth review, there's going to be a patch to fix 32 known problems with this game. So it's kind of like a love-hate relationship. The game, when I played it, when the four of us were going at it and having so much fun doing it, driving around, killing zombies, leveling up, finding rare items, having fun, this game is outstanding. But how could you have 32 known issues at launch of the game? That's horrible. And again, these beta tests I really feel have to be done better, because it's pretty obvious this was not beta tested to the extent that it needed to be beta tested, that they would have caught all of these issues. And because of that, it does hurt my overall feeling of the game. If this game didn't have I would even forgive the graphical issues. If this game didn't have the networking issues that it has right now, this probably would have been one of my favorite games of the year, if not my favorite game of the year, because it was so much fun to play this game with my friends, okay? But you have to understand, not everyone can do full 4-player co-op like I did. Not everyone has 3 other friends who can dedicate 20 to 30 hours to play this game with them. And this game, unfortunately, didn't completely sell itself and say, hey, you should play this game co-op no matter what. Now, it's funny because when you play the game at first, you play through the prologue, and as soon as you get through the prologue, people have the ability to join your game unless you change it to private. So the game kind of is saying in that regards that, gee, if anyone can pop in and out of your game whenever, the game probably is meant to be pure co-op, but no one kind of knew that until the game came out. So now that I'm telling you that, I hope you understand. If you don't have friends to play this game with, don't buy it. I'm telling you. You're not going to enjoy the single-player experience anywhere near as much as playing this game with friends. So why, oh why, don't these testers find 32 issues that are now going to be fixed as of the end of this week? I mean, it boggles my mind, and I have to consider that in my score. So, Dead Island, outstanding for what they did. I hope that this company, Techland, continues and makes a sequel and does even better with the sequel and adds more features and fixes a lot of these problems so that you don't have networking issues, graphical problems, console lockups on the launch of the game. But for what they did, being a first entry, this is a new IP, you know, it's a completely new line of games, it's outstanding. It's one of the best co-op games I've ever played in my entire life, if not the best co-op game I played this year. The only other game that I think co-op stood up to this game is Portal 2. So, yeah, this game, really, really good, but having flaws being that it's not a good single-player game. Right now, the matchmaking and networking is balls. It's hard to connect if you disconnect from who you're playing with, and there's graphical issues. Now, all this could change next week, and therefore, if I didn't play this game upon launch this week, after the patch comes out, that's supposed to come out, all these problems could be fixed, and in that case, the score should be inflated. So let me give you some perspective, okay? If this game didn't have any of the problems I just stated, the only negative I'd be able to say about the game is this doesn't have much of a story and it's not a good single-player game, I would still give this game a 9.25, okay? Now again, that's forgiving everything. If it didn't have the graphical problems and the networking problems, I would have given this game a 9.25. That's how good and how much fun it is when you're playing this game with friends. But I can't ignore the fact that upon launch of this game and the release of this game, it had those problems. So as an honest reviewer, I have to dock the game, and I'm going to say that in its current form, Dead Island Special Edition is an 8.5, okay? Still one of my favorite games of the year. In my opinion, still a Game of the Year contender. So what I'm interested to do now is follow up and find out if the patch that they come out with this week does fix all these problems. And if it does, then my overall feeling on the game may bump it to a 9.25, you know what I mean? But we beat the game within 2 days. We had this goal, we had it set, we're going to beat the game within 2 days, and we did everything we could. We put 23 hours into the game, we put up with the bugs, we put up with the networking issues. Overall, an extremely fun game if you have friends to play it with. Don't buy this game for single player. It's all about the co-op. I hope this is where co-op games are going in the future. And with games like Borderlands, now a game like this, I think that we're headed on the right track. I can't wait to see what these guys put out next. So Dead Island Special Edition, right now it's an 8.5. The score has potential to go up if the bugs get fixed later this week, but I have to review it for what it was when I played it. It's an 8.5. Very good game. I don't know what the fuck some of these game magazines and media were saying when they reviewed this game and said it rated it so low. There are some companies that gave this a 2 out of 5, so that would have been, what, a 40 or a 4 on a ranking? I'm sorry, a 2. Yeah, it would have been a 4 out of 10. What? Like, I can tell you right now, they didn't play the game 4-player co-op. They played it single player, which isn't what this game is meant to be. Now again, maybe that's the fault of these guys for not outright being honest and saying, don't buy this game for the single player, you have to play with other people. So that could be the reason why it was rated so low. But this game is an outstanding game with other people when you play it with them, and it's a great game. It's an 8.5 for me, okay? So that's it for the Hateful Truth for Dead Island. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this definitely explains a lot of the things that you were wondering about the game, and whether or not if you were on the fence about getting it after seeing some of my playthrough. Again, must get if you have friends you can dedicate to play the game with. It's a skip if you don't have the friends to play the game with. It's that simple. But one of the best co-op games I've ever played. Okay, that's it for the Hateful Truth. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.